Hello and welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. Hey, here's what we got on the docket for tonight. We're going to make a quick trip over to Nosara, Costa Rica, get our marlin fix over there from Craig Sutton, and then we're going to come back to the northeast corner of Florida, work our way all the way down the East Coast, through the Keys, up the West Coast, and out the Panhandle. You know, the guys have got great reports for us this week. Our weather's clearly gotten better, but I got a question for them. Man, it seems like kingfish tournaments are going on every week now, and I want to know, is it good for the resource because it brings so many people to the table, or are we targeting the big fish on the beach too much? The only reason I'm asking, I don't know the answer. So let's get started. Tonight's Florida Sportsman Action Spotter is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. Shimano, bringing people and nature together. Tournament Master Chum, the best chum on earth. Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. Young Boats, the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrids. The Castaway Hat Co. Hey, there's a hat for every adventure. And this week, what a pleasure to welcome Academy Sports and Outdoors. Hey, Academy is a big part of all of our lives, and now they're opening a new location just for Panama City. Academy Sports and Outdoors. Right stuff, low price, every day. All right, let's get it started with a quick trip out to Nosara, Costa Rica. Time to get our long-distance report from my favorite billfish destination in the world, Nosara, Costa Rica. Craig, how we doing, buddy?
Well, good, Captain Ricky. I'm heading down there on Wednesday.
Man, I wish I was going with you. Tell me what the word is. Yep. How's their fishing?
Fall settled in, and the marlin came back. We only had about 8 days we didn't catch one. Then this last week we had a nice batch of 4 marlin. Missed a couple each day, but, one was a real nice fish, nice blue. And, the proverbial sailfish and a few yellowfin. Dolphin, the big ones were a little bit quiet this last week, but they'll be back.
All right. Now, it seems like it's been a better big dolphin season for you and not quite as strong on sailfish. Are sailfish coming back at all?
No. I mean, we got about 2 weeks ago, we got good numbers consistently, but no, they're the 2s, 3s, and 4s. But the marlin are mixed in with them. We're getting more marlin, and yes, you're right, we've got more big mahi, but also we're not getting the big yellowfin yet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, normally last year between November 1 and the end of May, we got 5 that were in the 200-pound class.
Mm-hmm.
69, 70-inch fish and up. And of course, lost several. And then last May, we caught, I want to say 7. Yeah, we caught 3 and 4 days Memorial Day weekend down there last year. But and we got the photos to prove them. But this year we haven't. We've got some 80s and 70s and one they called 100. I'm not sure it was 100. I saw the photo and it was, it was probably 80-ish. But it's still a nice fish, but the real big ones have been absent.
They'll
Let's hope
be
they change.
Yep.
They will, and it's just the current has changed, in the last 5 days, 6 days. So they'll be there.
Hey, Craigie, let me ask you a local question. You ready for this?
Okay. Yes, sir.
And I know that nobody loves kingfish tournaments more than you do.
Ooh, that's the truth, isn't it?
And back in the 80s, we had roller net boats. We had massive loads of kingfish coming in. We started having these tournaments. People started getting involved in kingfishing and all that roller net and stuff and all those floating nets, gill nets that they had offshore. All that came to an end. And now we have tournaments, seems like every weekend, everywhere. Seems like the tournaments are targeting the big females. Are the tournaments a good thing in the fact that they keep us aware of the kingfish stocks and how we're doing and help us know where we may be missing fish and what we may need to do? Or Are we having too many tournaments, and are we targeting too many big female breeders?
Nah, not even close. We're not. The impact that tournaments put on the kingfish stocks, I'm speaking the East Coast of Florida and the West Coast too, it's minimal. It's so minimal. I mean, your commercial fishermen, they put way, way more pressure on the stocks than we ever hoped to. And I know the guys south of us, Fort Pierce, Daytona, they're if anybody's hurting the stock, those guys are. I mean, there's a lot of boats that fish these tournaments, and they're popular and stuff, but that's probably better for the species. Keeps people kind of in touch in them. And I was around during those roller net boats, and not only did the kingfish vanish, the Spanish, and it was horrible. Yeah, and it's a proven fact that the sport fishing industry contributes a whole lot more toward the economy than the other segments.
When you
I'm not being anti-commercial.
When you and I fueled up last week, we saw that, didn't we?
Well, I mean, the Greater Jacksonville did a study. Now, this was 25 years ago, and it was kind of judging the economic impact. And they judged back then, it was like $320 per day per person that participated in the event. And I looked at it even back in those days, I go, are you kidding me? You have any idea that that's not even a ribbon fish bill, So, it's a whole lot more economic impact. And that study, even though it was probably 30 years ago now, Greater Jacksonville at the end of that study was ranked number 4 in the Jacksonville area for economic impact. And the real numbers, I mean, if you delved into their numbers, the real numbers that a fisherman contributes was significantly higher than the numbers they had. So it was probably the number 2 economic impact of Jacksonville. And they never counted the boat sales and insurance for the boats.
Oh, sure.
All they were counting was your meals, your hotel expenses, and the entrance to the tournament. So, and I explained to the lady that was kind of put forth a lot of the input in them, Leona Shad. I said, those aren't even close.
Yeah, that's true. All right, buddy. We appreciate it.
$1.40. All right, brother.
Thank you, Craig. We'll talk with you next week. It's time to check in on the First Coast up in Jacksonville. That's where Captain David Voorhees, I know he's been battling the wind for a little while. David, it's been a windy spring, hasn't it?
It's been windy. It's been water temperature's been up and down, but I think summer's here now, and I think the heat is going to be with us, which sometimes affects the way we fish. Now, I always talk about fishing the tides. However, when we get into these summer months and it gets so darn hot that you don't really want to be out there past 11 o'clock, you got to sort of adjust the way you fish. In other words, you're going to be fishing more in the morning, early morning, regardless of the tide. So you got to start getting better at fishing the high waters and these low waters. You're going to get one or the other in that early morning. You're either going to get high water or you're either going to get the low tide. Now this week, luckily, the high water's been a pretty good bite. Not seeing a lot of numbers, Rick, but some really quality fish, some big fish up on the flats, up close to the grass. And, that sort of was, Saturday was a real good bite. And then Sunday sort of got tough, and Monday today was also tough. But, you gotta fish that grass. You gotta fish that high water, which means you're going to be moving a little bit more. You're not setting up. You're not going to catch a lot of fish out of one spot, and you sort of hope to find a big school of reds up on the mud flats. But we just don't see that like we used to, Rick. Been a lot of flounders this week, but I'm telling you, they've been a lot of small ones. We did get a nice one that went close to 5 pounds.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Which really nice. And but other than that, I mean, you might catch 5 or 6 in a day, or I might catch 5 or 6 in a day, and sometimes only one of them's a keeper.
Yeah, and it's that time of year. I mean, we had
Yep.
a rush of big fish early and got all excited, but the reality is this time of year is usually 12 to 14-inch fish. David, that sounds good. Now, a week from now, you'll be on an opposite tide.
We'll be on an opposite tide. We'll have that outgoing tide in the morning, the lower tide early. So, you just, like I said, summertime, you sort of got to get out there and fish that morning. The one thing that does save us here living next to the ocean is we get a good sea breeze. And, sometimes that sea breeze, if we get it kicks up enough, it's enough to keep you cool around the mid part of the day. But like I said, this week, that low tide just did not produce for me. It seems like the better fishing was on that higher, that high turn of the tide. We did see some really nice trout this week. Got one today that went about 21 inches, and they are definitely all fat and rode up. You can tell that these trout are probably going to spawn again on this next moon coming up.
Good deal. Thank you, David. As always, we appreciate it. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Absolutely, Ricky. Tight line.
You got it. Take care. That means it's Central Florida time and Captain Jim Ross. Jimmy, how are you?
Doing fantastic, Rick. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, by the way. Tell me how your fishing's been. Been a little breezy the last couple days.
We've had a lot of wind. The guys that want to get offshore and catch this dolphin that showed up just before the wind started are just chomping at the bit to get back out there. The best bite last week was that 180 to about 220 foot zone. We had some rips and some weed lines in there, and the guys were doing pretty good on the dolphin. Also, the guys that are going to the other side of the Gulf Stream are doing really good on the dolphin over there as well. And of course, that blackfin, skipjack, and yellowfin tuna bite over there has been on fire for basically the whole last month. So when the guys can get over to the other side, they are doing very, very well. One of the things that's kind of interesting, though, a lot of guys chase bird packs over there. So we look at our radars and watch the electronics. But I was talking with Skip Wise, and he came across one pack that was free jumping and had absolutely no birds on it at all. So he says, keep your eyes open, even though you're running your radar and he says, old school, eyeballs on the fish kind of thing is not necessarily a bad thing. And they came across their biggest fish of the day with no birds over the top of them. So kind of interesting for the guy, for those guys when they were there, running over there, looking at that radar and then going, well, we didn't really need it for the big fish today. The other thing is the snook right now. We've only got a couple of days of snook season left, and the snook right now are really not doing very well in the daytime. Nighttime bite much better, especially at Ponce Inlet. The guys that are over there at Ponce are doing flare hawks and swim baits. In fact, the saltwater assassin shiner colored swim bait seems to be a new hot one that the guys are. That's on the secret lowdown. Nobody's supposed to be telling anybody about. But we're gonna let you guys out there, Florida Sportsman, know about it. That saltwater assassin shiner color. It's actually in their bass lineup of their guide appers. But they're putting those on jig heads, and they're doing really good on the snook at Sebastian right now.
Hey, Jim, how would you like to know how many red and white flare hawks are on the bottom of the jetties there? Hey, when I fished Fort Pierce 50 years ago, they were throwing red and white flare hawks.
And they still work today.
Yeah,
it's amazing, isn't it?
You'd think the snook would learn. Jim, that's a great report. We appreciate the heck out of it. Thank you, buddy. Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast is brought to you each and every week by Tournament Master Chum, always the best chum on earth, by Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation, by D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage, and by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat span offshore hybrids? You need to check out youngboats.com. Our thanks to Jim Ross for a great East Central report. Now it's time to hit my favorite little fishing village, Stuart, Florida, and talk with one John Earhart. John, how are you?
I'm good. Glad to be here, Rick.
We're glad to have you, buddy. Tell me about your fishing. You're due to start seeing some dolphin and sails.
Yeah, it seems like this week it's kind of slowed down a little bit. We've been catching more blackfin tunas than anything. we've been seeing sporadic mahi action, and that's been in 90 to 180 feet. You've been having to sit in areas or troll a good bit of distance to get these fish, and it seems like we're getting singles. There's been a few sailfish being caught in like 90 to 160. Not a lot of numbers of either, but they are around. But be prepared to cover a lot of ground, or be patient and sit live bait fishing and chumming to get these fish to swim up in your area and hopefully get bites out of them. But in between the sails and the mahis, there's been some jumbo-sized blackfin tunas that we've been catching. And to be honest, we've actually been overrun with kingfish over the past few days. I see a lot of guys are catching, heavy lifter kings, and I've seen a few that were 30 to 40 pound class.
So that's a good one.
There are a lot of kings around, but that's been in a little bit shallower. That's in the 60 to 90 foot range. So if you're getting kind of bored, not getting a lot of action, and you want to just bend the rods, put a wire leader on, there are plenty of kingfish to catch in that 60 to 90 foot depth range.
Mm-hmm. All right, sounds good. What's your snook situation right now? Do you open June 1st, or are you closed? What's the deal?
So we're open to the end of the month, and then it'll be closed starting June 1st.
Is the fishing good for them?
The snook fishing's been pretty good this week. Seems like we're catching more smaller fish than I'm accustomed to. I'm not seeing those giants near the St. Lucie Inlet that I usually start to see right about now. A lot of people are catching keeper-sized fish, around the bridges, closer to the inlet. Once we break into June, I tend to see those fish that are 20, 30 pounds as they get ready to spawn. So I would expect to see larger fish in the coming days. There's been a lot of slot-sized fish or smaller around, and we've been catching those on live filters, thread fins. If you want oversized snook, a lot of these tackle shops are selling live croakers, and that'll certainly get the job done if you're trying to catch a trophy snook. Just be certain to get a quick picture with it if you are needing a picture, and gently put them back in the water. Since these fish are typically breeders, we don't really want to beat them up. We want to get a nice picture with them and gently set them in the water and release them so that they can swim off healthy and continue to breed, so that we have even more snook in our St. Lucie Inlet next season.
Well said, Captain John Earhart. Thank you, buddy. We appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Yes, sir. I'll talk to y'all next week.
Okay, Captain John Earhart. Now, let's hop on down to Miami and find out what's going on in Southeast Florida from Captain Alan Sherman. Alan, how are you?
Doing just fine, Rick. How are you?
I'm doing good. Now, tell me about your fishing.
Well, we are having winds again. I know that for you guys, 15 to 25 mile an hour winds are like calm conditions.
No.
But for us, it's kind of rough.
Mm-hmm.
We're used to having 15 mile an hour winds or less. And we just keep getting pummeled by these winds. But there's fish to be caught. The guys fishing offshore, they're getting blackfin tunas, mostly in the late afternoons. But these fish are ranging in sizes of 15 to 30 pounds.
Big ones.
So,
good ones.
Yeah. They're eating live bait, mostly fished under a kite. But while they're doing that, they're also catching some oversized kingfish, fish in the 30-pound range. So there is some action there. And then there's been some sailfish as well. A few of them moving through. Dolphin are being caught, not in numbers, one or two here. They just kind of come in on the live baits under the kites. And there's been sailfish around as well. There's been more dolphin offshore, say 8-10 miles out on the weed lines. They're not big numbers of them, but if you work those weed lines, especially if they have bait and birds working, you're likely to get into a school of maybe heavy lifters, but mostly smaller fish than that. We've got amberjacks, gag black and red groupers on the wrecks, some pretty decent-sized mutton snappers also on the wrecks. They're mostly eating live pinfish. Big amberjacks, 50-pounders. If you want to feel a big tug on your arm, that's for sure. And then in the ocean inlets, we've got some really nice snook. I think that we have a few more days left of the season there for them, so you can target them with live baits, mostly pinfish, but they'll eat a live filtered or a big threadfin herring. There's been some nice sea trout still being caught on the grass flats in Biscayne Bay. and they're eating shrimp under a popping cork or Cajun Thunder. They're also taking hookup lure jig heads with a gulp shrimp. And the freshwater fishing's winding down. Water levels are starting to rise, but there's still plenty of peacocks in most of the canals if that's something you enjoy fishing for.
Alan, I've never talked to anybody. Are peacocks good to eat?
It's funny that you should ask that question because I'm sure they are. I don't fish for them a lot. I did have a charter on Friday in the Glades where we caught them on fly and artificials, but I've never eaten one, and I've never had anybody want to eat one. But I'm not sure what the regulations are on them. It's when I fish them, it's always catch and release.
That's funny. Yeah. Speaking of such things, all right?
Yeah.
Oh, late 80s, mid 80s, we had roller net boats. We had drift nets. We had spotter planes. Kingfish were getting decimated. Then along came kingfish tournaments. Everybody started caring about kingfish, and we started seeing a lot less commercial pressure put on them. Of course, the roller nets and the drift kill nets were banned. Now it's all hook and line. But the kingfish tournaments put an awful lot of pressure on the big spawning females. That's the winning fish every time. Alan, what's worse? Are we hurting the kingfish with too many tournaments? Are we helping save the kingfish by keeping people aware of kingfish?
No, I think we're hurting them all around. I've been on the fishing the ocean way back before the 70s, and I do remember, especially on the party boats, where we would catch 100 kingfish every night. That's a 4-hour trip, and we would do it night after night until I just begged the captain, let's go anchor for a couple of nights just to get away from those kingfish. Today, if you can catch one kingfish, I mean, sometimes you can't even get one. I mean, the limits here, you're only allowed 2 per person, and it's hard to fill a 2 per person limit most of the year. There's times when they school up. There's times when they're more, prevalent. But I think if you take those big kingfish, the ones that are spawning full of roe out of the water during those tournaments, and just in general, you're hurting the kingfish stocks. And, they say that they've recovered. I don't think so.
Okay. Well, there's such a thing as localized depletion, too, and that may be what you're dealing with, because I know up in Northeast Florida, our numbers are good. I'm not sure I know we're not seeing as many big fish on the beach as we used to, but the catching numbers of kingfish has still been relatively easy. Not simple, but relatively easy. Alan, as always, we appreciate your report. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Yes, you can.
All right, good deal. Captain Alan Sherman from Get 'em Sport Fishing Charters in Miami, Florida. Let's head on down into the Keys to none other than Islamorada and talk with Captain Brandon Storen. Brandon, how are you?
I'm great, Rick. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Condolences on your grandfather. I heard that your grandfather passed. 92 is a good long life.
I would be happy to make it to 72.
Careful. You're getting close there, boy. Better be careful. Tell me how your fishing's been.
It's been good. We got some mahi starting to show up down here. Also, the reef has still been having some good action. Still, it's like some mutton snappers being caught and some groupers being caught, along with some king mackerel. Some big mangrove snappers are making their way out to the reef, too, to do their spawn. As far as backcountry is concerned, we just saw a good spike of good snook fishing, where we've had a really tough year of snook fishing. We've had some really quality snook, and we actually landed one on the boat that was 39.5 inches.
Ooh, that's a good one.
The customer was half an inch away from being a member of the 40-inch club.
Yep. Well, almost don't count.
Almost don't count, but
that's right.
Biggest one I've ever landed on the boat, that's for sure. And it was not just a 39.5 incher; it was also a really fat fish.
I saw that picture. That was a gorgeous fish. Yep.
Giant, absolute giant, on a 3,000 reel, a 15-pound braid, ultralight rod I used for manx, and we got it to the boat.
Wow, that's fantastic. Any word on the swordfish this week?
It hasn't been red hot, but there's been some swordfish being caught here and there. So
Okay.
they're still out there. It's not like, they're jumping in the boat, but it's also, it's just, we've had a lot of wind the past couple of days, so not a lot of people have been making it to the sword ground.
Gotcha. Okay. Long before you were born, back in the 80s and the 70s, we had commercial exploitation of kingfish. We had roller net boats, we had drift gill nets, we had all kind of stuff. And then we started these kingfish tournaments, and guys started getting real involved with kingfish, and we passed some really good limits, 2 per person, and we cut back the harvest quite a bit. But the problem is that 2 per person very often involves the big spawning fish doing their thing. Are the tournaments good because they keep people involved in kingfish, or are they bad because we're taking too many big fish?
You know what? I don't think that the tournament is doing huge harm to that species. I think, of course, commercial fishing, all year round charter fishing. I just think that we all need to do our part and just be careful of everything. I know some boats that kill 10 big mutton snappers in a day, and they keep their limit of black groupers in a day. Of course, those are more slow growing, slow reproducing fish. You know what I mean? We all just need to do our part. For example, when I'm out there, we catch 1 or 2 big mutton snappers. I'm like, okay, that's great. We got lucky. Let's move on and leave them alone. And I feel like we need to do that all around. If we're talking about tournaments, like kill tournaments, what we really should be more concerned about is the marlin kill tournaments. Tournaments out there that are going out and killing God knows how many marlin in a day. That's something where it should be more practice of the fish next to the boat, get a total length of the fish, revive it, release it. That's, more of a concern. You know what I mean?
Yep.
No matter what, there will be commercial harvesting of kingfish, but the commercial marlin kill tournaments we have around the country, around the world, I think is something that we should point more attention to.
All right. Good point. Good point. I appreciate it. Thank you, Brandon. We'll talk with you next week if that's okay.
Absolutely, always.
All right, Captain Bean. Take care. Captain Brandon Storin out of Bud and Mary's in Alamorada.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalu marine engine oils. Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalu full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalu marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is the mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to its name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with Menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to you second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master Chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore-offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. Now let's move on over to 10,000 Islands to one of my favorite people in the state of Florida, Captain Steve Dahl. Steve, how are you?
Oh, I'm great after that compliment.
Oh,
That's
man,
fantastic.
you're the best, Cap. You are the best. Tell me what's happening in 10,000 Islands.
A lot. It's pretty good. The inshore side's doing really good still. The snook fishing's really good. We're starting to see a little bit of migration of those bigger female fish leaving the beaches and going to the nearshore wrecks. So keep that in mind. If you're going to be beach fishing, understand that most of those fish are going to be a little bit smaller males. Most fish are probably in the lower 20-inch range. And those big fish over 30 inches, are starting to move offshore. So that's a typical time of year where this happens. So don't be discouraged if you're not finding, those bigger fish. But those bigger snook are definitely out there. But you got to be a little careful. And what I mean by that is this time of year always brings this warmer water. We have a ton of sharks in the area. So I try not to fish for those bigger female fish out on the wrecks, just because a lot of times you're running into sharks, and I hate losing fish to sharks, let alone, breeder size fish like that. So
that's a lose all the way around when you hook up a great fish and then a shark hits it. I've had it happen way too many times.
Of course, yeah. So, if you're going to do that, just understand if those sharks are around, probably don't give it too much effort. You're kind of, probably hurting the fishery more than helping it. So on that side, the tarpon are still available too. It's hot though. We're in the kind of, pre-summer mode. I'm calling it summer. It's here, but everyone tells me it's pre-summer, and the heat is not telling me that. So water temps are up, air temps are up. Tarpon are still cooperative, but you got to absolutely get that, that bite done by probably say almost 9 o'clock. We're talking, pre-dawn launch, get out there, get set up. Got a couple hours to kind of make it happen. That bite kind of wanes anyway once that sun really starts to come up. If you get an overcast day, you might get another hour out of it right now, but and the heat is an issue. It's starting to get warm, so definitely bring a lot of water.
Are you getting some smaller fish now, or are you still working on big fish?
Yeah, you know what? At this time of year, that first and second wave kind of come through. It'll start to tail off for us here, probably in the next couple weeks. So I'm starting to pepper in on the days that we're starting to get the, afternoon rain showers. That really helps our area because we have so many little tributaries and creeks and, that flow, into the 10,000 islands. And that's the time you want to ultimately be, fishing for those juvenile tarpon. These fish are big, they're 30-pound class fish. They could be 10 pounds too, but these aren't small, little micro mini, tarpon. We get nice 10 to 30-pound fish.
That's a great fish. Man, that's
it is.
Fish.
It's ultimately my favorite, and you don't have to drink a bottle of water after you're done catching.
That's right. Cap, as always, we appreciate it. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Oh, I can't wait.
Thanks so much. Captain Steve Dahl from 10,000 Islands. That means it's time for Southwest Florida and one Greg Stamper. Greg, how we doing?
I'm doing very well, Rick. It was a great day of fishing.
Excellent. Was your weather okay?
Oh, yeah, we're in good shape right now. We're starting to get into that summer pattern, but we're not quite there yet. The rains come and go from time to time, but as long as you're smart, you got good apps and you can pay attention to it, it's not a big deal. Today we caught some really, really nice redfish, some nice snook, and I'll just let you know right now what the pattern is going to be over this next week or so, because the tides in the middle of the day towards the mid-afternoon aren't all that great for a few more days. But I'll tell you right now, you start on the beach, you sight fish snook, you catch a few pompano, and then you move your way towards the back as that water rises, and there's a lot of really good redfish that are really happy to see you, that you can just catch them, let them go, because they're way too big to keep.
Oh, that's fantastic. Just because they're too big to keep, that doesn't mean they're not a whole heck of a lot of fun to catch.
Oh, they're all big, and it's really good to see. I'm still hoping we start seeing some smaller reds, Rick, but that's to come. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'll bet it is coming for you. Have you heard anything from offshore, from your grouper guys?
Yeah, you know what? It's been very consistent. They've had some really good days where they can get out there far. And these guys are actually starting to branch out a little bit further because they're getting ready for the whole red snapper thing. But they're getting out to that 140, 150 area, which, in my neck of the woods, Rick, that's a long way. That's 40, 50 miles minimum. And the red grouper bite is still consistently very, very good. Their bycatch continues to be all the different snappers, a lot of mutton snappers. I saw some this week that were about 10 pounds, nothing crazy.
That's good
A
fish.
lot of really nice mangrove snappers. But this is the time of year, Rick, if you have the opportunity to get a guide and go out there and do some nighttime snapper fishing, you're going to bust up some 5 to 10 pound mangoes.
That is fun too, buddy. That's all the fun you can have with your clothes on right there.
You got it.
All right, Cap, we appreciate it as always. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Always, Rick. Look forward to it. Next week I'll be doing some juvenile tarpon, so we'll probably talk about that.
I'll be waiting for it. Thank you, Captain Greg Stamper. Let's hit the West Central and Captain Ray Markham. Raymond, how are you?
Pretty good, buddy.
Good. How's your fishing?
It's been pretty good. A little scattered this and that. A lot of smaller sea trout still. Still catching some silver trout inshore, catching some nice redfish and a few kind of mondo-sized snook that I'm trying to avoid. And actually a few pompano. Jacks, ladyfish, a lot of whiting out on the beaches. Let's see what else we got here. I said pompano. That's about it on the inshore stuff. They're still wrecking the big red grouper offshore. Most of the guys that I'm talking with are running anywhere from 120 to 200, 220 feet. That's a ways to go, but they're still catching a bunch of early morning Spanish mackerel just off the beaches. Scattered kingfish. I think the bulk of the kingfish run is probably already headed. So, headed north a little bit. So the guys that are still catching some actually pretty good ones, they're catching them on deep water wrecks along with blackfin tuna, an occasional wahoo, a few sailfish, and kind of a smattering a little bit of everything. So
you don't lose a lot of kingfish over there to barracuda, do you?
It depends on where you're fishing. If you're fishing on wrecks, yeah, you have a tendency to do that. Okay. But that's pretty much where most of the barracudas have been, and they're even on some of the artificial reefs that are near shore. So 50 feet of water. So it is what it is. Hopefully that won't happen when I get my next permit. So
hey, I got to ask you a question.
Sure.
Right? You and I are old timers. We remember the roller net boats. We remember the floating gill nets. We remember the horrible days of kingfish that were way over harvested. And then came the tournaments, and guys got involved in the tournaments, and they got involved in kingfish. We got some realistic limits on the recreational side. 2 per person is plenty. Are the tournaments good for keeping the awareness up about kingfish, Ray, or are we targeting the big females too much and actually hurting the stock with so many tournaments?
Well, I honestly don't follow how many tournaments there are. I do look at the big ones. I don't think there's enough fish in a limit to really hurt the population.
Okay.
However, like Spanish mackerel, to me, if I catch a Spanish mackerel, if it's not just barely hooked and I throw it back, it's probably going to die. They're just not all that hardy.
They're not real hardy.
And same thing goes with trout. Trout are real fragile. As long as you handle them minimally and take care of them, they survive pretty well. But honestly, I've been kind of down on all tournaments because there is a bycatch. You're going to catch things that you don't really target. And in addition to that, there's release mortality. So you're going to hook some that are foul hooked and whatever. It just happens. And I'm not sure that it's a problem per se. And the only reason I say that is because I think the FWC, when they're making their regulations, I think they take that into consideration.
I sure wish the feds were as good as the FWC.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I'm not sure they have a clue what's going on out there.
Yeah.
When they tell me, red snapper or there's none left. you know.
Ray,
So-
Ray, it's been closed in Jacksonville, or it's been closed in Northeast Florida for a year. Okay,
Yeah.
closed, slam shut.
Yeah.
Can't bring one in, none, nada. And they just listed red snapper is undergoing overfishing. All right, explain that one to me. Thank you, Cap. We appreciate it as always. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Yes, sir. Hope we have a better report.
Yep. Thanks, Ray.
We'll catch you.
Captain Ray Markham from West Central. Let's pull up toward the Big Bend and check in with the mayor of Homosassa, one William Tony. How we doing, Cap?
We're doing good. You know, in Homosassa, it seems, I don't know if the rest of the state is feeling summer, but we sure are here.
It's hot already, Bubba. It didn't take long.
Yes, sir. Did not take long. But, you know, we had some good, refreshing rains this earlier in the week. And, you know, our water out there hit 85 degrees, but I keep telling the anglers we need those rains every afternoon, or cloud cover and a little westerly breeze. And what it does, I think the fish get acclimated to that, and we'll get out of this kind of inshore rut our bite's been in.
I got you. What's been biting?
Well, you know, what's been happening. It's a transition. It's kind of right now we're starting to get some nice mangrove snapper on our inshore rocks, and about 8 to 14 feet. And then we got some trout. So the trout are spread out. You'll get some nice big ones back up inshore, but they're far and few between. But if you go out to the 8 to 10 foot depths and jig out there with some new penny or some golden brim colors, some air lures, or D.O.A. or gulp, you can get out there and you'll catch sea bass and some nice trout. You know, barely legal to 17-inch would be a big one. So the big thing coming up here, which is probably next week, is the opening of gag grouper season.
Yep, no doubt about it. I'm hearing about that all up and down the Gulf. And the reports I've heard from the scouts is it looks like the numbers are pretty good.
Yeah, on the shallow rocks that I've been out to snapper fishing and things like that, I've been seeing some fish that were in the keeper range from 8 to 12 foot. But I think if you're going to get real serious and you got the big boat, starting somewhere around that 25 to 40 foot range is where you're going to get your limit pretty quick. And also mixed in there, I just talked to a couple offshore captains today. They're getting some AJs and some big mangrove snappers. In fact, I talked to one angler out there this past weekend that caught one 21 inches. So that's a really nice mango. So, you know, it's worth the gas price to get out there. And what you need to do is probably load the boat to make it, you know, with the price of fuel being $6 a gallon, you want to get out there, you know, to make the best of the day and not only target gag grouper, but the mangrove snapper and whatever else to make sure that you capitalize on that fuel being spent running that distance.
You want to fill up your diesel boat at the marina in Massachusetts this week?
No, I don't know, but what's the price? You got to tell me. You got to tell me.
That would be $13.95.
Oh man, dang! I think that you know, I my bicycle might be good, but I just can't pull my boat with it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That is just absolutely crazy.
Diesel at the marina, $13.95. Unbelievable,
man. So you know that's real quick though. That's our downfall on our offshore side for the grouper, but you know they are out here on the Big Bend, and so. You know, we got other areas in our area, too, that is open for scalloping up north of us. So there's that early season up towards Swanee and that area. So don't forget about that. But, you know, good things on the horizon except for fuel.
Have you heard anything about the scalloping yet?
I have not. There's a couple counties up toward the north of us, and I have not heard any reports. Now, our season is still set to kick off here on July 1st. And nobody I've really talked to has been in the water yet to go gawk around and see what the count is out there yet. But hopefully next week I'll be able to tell you a little more on that.
Well, how about start building a pile, will you?
I will. Well, I got our secret stash already.
Thank you, William. As always, we appreciate it.
All right, bud. We'll talk to you next week.
Captain William Tony. Our thanks to William Tony for a great Big Bend report. Now, we're going to move up into the northwest corner, and we are going to check with a guy that I think wakes up every morning and says, is it June 1st yet? Are you ready, Kevin Lanier?
I am beyond ready. I am tired. I am tired of going out every day and catching more red snapper than we know what to do with and not being able to keep them. And I'm ready to be able to put them in a box.
Well, just so you know, in Northeast Florida, they cut our 3-day season to 2 days, Kevin.
I heard a rumor that they're going to take us to like 85. So
shut up. No. Just take that 85 and stick it in your ear. Jeez.
No, we're still at the same amount. So, hey, but fishing's been really good. I mean, we got out and got some really nice red grouper this week, and the trigger bite is still great. Amberjack fishing's good. Get your live bait, get them out there. I was telling some guys today, I said, if you're going to fish for amberjack, live bait and keep it shallow because you got to be able to stop them before they get to the structure.
Yep. I tell you, I think I've probably told you this before, but my wife in her younger days was determined to set the women's 10-pound test record on amberjack. And she didn't make it, Kevin, but she did get a 70.
Wow.
And that's a pretty good one on 10-pound test.
Oh, good Lord, that's a great fish on 10-pound test. Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping to get them on 80 with full drag. Yep. So I can only imagine.
That was 2 hours and 40 minutes of heat and sweat. Oh, it was horrible.
Oh, wow.
And that was about, I'll bet you in the summertime, she would rather amberjack fish than anything. And I'll bet you there wasn't a summer that went by I didn't make that girl 200 amberjack leaders. And she'd go through every last one of them.
That's amazing.
Yep, she was determined. So your snapper and grouper look good for June 1st, huh?
Yep, snapper grouper look good for June 1st. I'm hoping the weather comes in there and it's good. We got a little tropical wave moving through the Panhandle today, so that's always a concern. We seem to always have something tropical around the end of May, the first week or so of June. So we're hoping that we got an open window to get out there when it opens. But yeah, I mean, the fishing's been great. I mean, even the redfish and trout bite's been really good this week. So it's all been good.
Good deal. Well, this time next week, you won't be able to sleep. It'll be almost time. Thank you so much for a great report, Kevin, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, Captain Rick, we'll talk to you later. Have a good day.
Kevin Lanier with the Northwest Report. Can't leave Florida till you go through Destin. Let's find out what Tyler Massey's up to. Hey, before we go any further, it's always fun to welcome a new sponsor to the Florida Sportsman Podcast. This week, the Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. A new sponsor we're glad to have them, Academy Sports and Outdoors. Right stuff, low price, every day. By Yamaha, reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. And by Tournament Master Chum. Oh, it's the best chum on earth, all right. All right, let's get back to the podcast and find out what's happening with the fishing. Captain Tyler, how we doing?
I'm doing good, Rick. How are you guys?
Doing fine. Tell me about your fishing.
So, yeah, fishing's been pretty consistent. Nothing, I wouldn't call it spectacular, but we're definitely, catching some fish. Inshore-wise, speckled trout, are moving onto the grass flat, so makes them a little easier target for a lot of people. It opens up the areas that you can fish for them by, they're just almost anywhere right now. So live shrimp on a float or a cork is working really well. Lures, something you can cover some ground with. A mirror lure, Mirrodine is working really well too. So inshore fishing, the trout are definitely picking up. Other stuff inshore.
Hey, Tyler, which Mirrodine do you like better? The one that looks like a pogie or that one that's kind of long and skinny like a glass minnow?
We do like I think it's the MR17, the one that's more like pogie shaped.
Yeah, me too.
We use that one, and I use a variety of different colors. Anything with a darker color back, lighter color sides is what I go with. Just something natural looking.
Excellent. Any word from offshore?
Yeah, offshore wise, we're still catching our trigger fish for a couple more days. Vermilion snapper, weather's not looking that great to finish out the season on the trigger fish, but vermilion snapper are biting almost everywhere right now, and that's an excellent fish to catch when you're bottom fishing until the recreational snapper season opens. We do get to start keeping our snappers for our federally chartered or federally permitted charter boats. So, if people want to get them a little earlier, they can call and book with us. But until the 17th, they have to wait to catch them themselves. So, as far as trolling wise goes, a lot of mahi around. We've had a lot of sargassum, which is kind of uncommon for this time of year. It's a little early for us, and I was also in reports. There's a lot of sargassum all across the whole state. I've seen, but yeah, there's definitely mahi on those grass patches if you can find the ones a little further offshore. And the guys trolling for wahoo are doing pretty good too. Anything in the 200 plus foot of water, trolling high speed plugs, whether it's a skirted lure on a lead or the nomad lures, Zuri bonitas, that kind of stuff. Have been picking up a few wahoo also.
Excellent. Great report. Hey, Tyler, you've been around this game a while. Let me ask you a question. Back in the bad old days, the 80s, early 80s, late 70s, we had roller net boats and drift gill nets and just all these ways of taking massive amounts of kingfish. And it really, really hurt the resource. Then the tournaments started, and it took all the pressure off from the netters. We outlawed netting. Net ban passed. Now I'm starting to question all these tournaments we're having, and they're targeting the big females. I think the kingfish tournaments really helped bring awareness to kingfish. But Kevin, are we now overdoing a good thing if we got too much pressure on them?
Me personally, I don't think that the tournaments are putting as much pressure as you give credit for. Throughout the whole state, the recreational, I think we're catching recreationally is far less than the commercial number as far as pounds taken per year. And I still think commercial fishing is the number one thing that could possibly be hurting the population, even though I don't think that the population's hurting very bad right now.
No, I don't either. I think it's in pretty good shape. I really feel like everybody loving kingfish in the way they do and loving the tournaments has been a much bigger plus for the fishery than what it's been a minus.
For sure. I do fish. I fish king mackerel. That's one of the only tournaments I fish still is king mackerel tournament. So I fish one or two a year over here in the Gulf Coast. Not necessarily always in Florida, but we always fish one in the fall. And, I think, king fishing, it being a migratory fish, fish maybe change their patterns. They don't hang out in the same places they always do. But, I think there's plenty of them around. And if you look at the commercial landings throughout the state, it's the numbers are still pretty high. A couple million pounds a year taken by commercial fishermen. And that just shows that there's plenty of them out there. Maybe they're not biting all the time where you're at, but they're there somewhere.
I agree with you 100%. Tyler, I think we need to, if we keep people involved in the process like we have, I think the kingfish are going to do just fine. Cap, as always, we appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, we'll see you, Rick.
Talk to you next week. Hey, it's been a lot of fun going around the state tonight. The guys had some interesting answers. For the most part, it seemed like everybody agreed that overall kingfish tournaments are not hurting the stock because the limits are tight, and they bring a lot of new people to the table, a lot of people that care about kingfish, and they're going to make sure they never get exploited. So we'll see how it goes over the next few years. I think I got my answer from the guys. Hey, this evening's Florida Sportsman Action Spotter has been brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Tournament Master Chum. Oh, it's the best chum on earth, all right. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. By Young Boats, you want the finest in flat span offshore hybrids, you need to check out youngboats.com. And by the Castaway Hat Co. That's the hat that's helping save our seas. And a great big welcome to our brand new sponsor, Academy Sports and Outdoors. Right stuff, low price, every day. That's Academy. I'm Captain Rick Riles for Florida Sportsman Magazine. And until next week, we'll see you on the Rick.